February 11th, 2012. The Beverly Hilton Hotel, room 434. Downstairs, the biggest party of the year was already setting up. Clive Davis's pre-Grammy Gala. The same party she'd owned for 30 years. She never made it downstairs. By the time paramedics reached her, Whitney Houston, the most awarded female artist in history, was already gone. She was 48. The official story took months to piece together. But the real story, the one that actually explains it, started decades earlier, in a church choir loft in Newark, New Jersey. Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born in 1963 into a house that already had music running through its walls. Her mother, Sissy Houston, was a gospel and soul powerhouse in her own right. She led a group called the Sweet Inspirations, singing backup for Elvis Presley, Aretha Franklin, and more. Her cousin was Dionne Warwick. Her godmother was Aretha herself. Young Whitney grew up singing in the choir at New Hope Baptist Church, where her mother, Sissy, served as minister of music, directing the very choir her daughters sang in. Sissy trained that voice herself, note by note, inside that choir loft. By age 11, the result was already stopping grown adults in the pews mid-service. By her teens, she was modeling, singing backup for her mother's sessions, and turning heads at every industry party she walked into. In 1983, record executive Clive Davis came to catch Sissy Houston's regular nightclub set, like he'd done plenty of nights before. That night, Sissy called her daughter up to sing backup, then stepped aside and let her take a solo. And Clive Davis said he knew within 30 seconds. He signed her to Arista Records on the spot. She was 19 years old. Nobody, including Whitney, had any idea what was about to happen. Her self-titled debut dropped in 1985. It produced 3 consecutive #1 singles, a feat no debut album had ever pulled off. Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, Greatest Love of All. Songs that are still played at weddings, funerals, and karaoke bars 4 decades later. By 22, she wasn't just famous. She was the standard other singers were measured against. Then, in 1992, came the role, and the song, that would define her forever, the Bodyguard. I Will Always Love You spent 14 weeks at #1. It became, and still is, the best-selling physical single by a woman in music history. In 1991, she'd already redefined the national anthem itself. Her Super Bowl performance is still ranked the greatest ever sung. By every measure that mattered, Whitney Houston had already won. She was 29 years old, and she had nowhere left to go but up. That same year, 1992, she married singer Bobby Brown. Friends warned her she married him anyway, 3 months pregnant, deeply in love. On paper, it looked like a fairy tale. 2 chart-topping stars, a beautiful daughter, more money than either of them could spend. But something started shifting behind the closed doors of that marriage. And by the mid-90s, the tabloids had a new favorite headline: canceled shows, erratic appearances. A voice that used to be flawless, suddenly cracking on notes she'd hit 1,000 times before. In 2002, she sat down with Diane Sawyer and denied everything: cocaine, marijuana, pills, with a line that would follow her for the rest of her life: crack is whack. The public laughed at the soundbite. What almost nobody clocked at the time was how much weight she'd lost, or how hollow her eyes had become. By 2005, a reality show called Being Bobby Brown put the unraveling on television for the whole world to watch and mock. Behind the cameras, people who loved her were already scared. In front of them, she kept insisting she was fine. The divorce from Bobby Brown finalized in 2007. She should have gotten better. For a while, she got worse. Friends described a woman who would disappear for days. A voice, the greatest voice of her generation, that she herself no longer fully trusted. In 2009, she tried to come back. The album was called I Look to You. Critics were kind. Longtime fans were relieved. Her voice, undeniably, had changed. The comeback tour that followed didn't go as planned. Some nights, the old power was still there. Other nights, she couldn't hit the notes at all, and the reviews were brutal. She kept going anyway. Friends said she genuinely believed she still had one more great chapter left in her. By early 2012, she was working on a comeback film, a remake of Sparkle, and telling people close to her that she felt hopeful again. Then came Grammy week. The same city, the same hotel, the same party she'd headlined in one form or another for almost 3 decades. The days before were, by most accounts, ordinary. Rehearsals, interviews, a performance with Kelly Price on Thursday night that fans say still sounded like her. But those close to her later described a woman drinking heavily that week, mixing alcohol with prescription medication and old habits nobody had ever fully talked her out of. On the afternoon of February 11th, she was seen by her hairstylist. Nothing seemed unusual. She was getting ready for the party downstairs. At some point, she ran a bath. What happened in the next hour would later be reconstructed almost entirely from a coroner's report. The official cause of death: drowning. Contributing factors: heart disease and cocaine use. She was found submerged, alone, just before 4 o'clock that afternoon. Downstairs, the gala went on that night, because nobody outside a small circle knew yet. Some of the biggest names in music sang and toasted, unaware. By the time the news broke, it broke everywhere at once. The world found out it had lost Whitney Houston in the middle of the one party built to celebrate people like her. Her funeral was held at the same New Jersey church, where, as an 11-year-old, she'd first stood up and sang a solo nobody could forget. Aretha Franklin was too heartbroken to sing. Stevie Wonder performed instead. The girl who'd once been Aretha's godchild was gone at 48. In the years since, the questions haven't really been about how she died. The coroner answered that. The real question people keep asking is why nobody could pull her back from the edge in time. The honest answer is uncomfortable. Addiction doesn't ask permission, and fame doesn't make anyone immune to it. If anything, it just gives the disease better hiding places. What's easy to forget, buried under the tabloid years, is just how singular that voice really was. Producers still study her vocal takes today like sheet music from another planet. Every singer who's ever tried to hold a note a beat too long, just to prove they could, they're chasing something Whitney Houston did first, and did better. She spent her whole life being called the Voice. 13 years after that hotel room, it's still the only nickname that's ever really fit. This has been the Icon Files. If you want the next story, the vault, the fentanyl, and the unreleased music nobody was ever supposed to hear, subscribe. Because Prince is next.